Hello, we'll begin out this version of The Absolute Truth by asking, where is Tulsi Gabbard? It appeared that the Director of National Intelligence was noticeably missing from today's cabinet meeting. She's been a prominent figure in cabinet meetings past. So it begs the question, is the Trump administration Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, on her way out? Now, many reports indicate that she is, at the very least, on thin ice in that role. These rumors come on the heels after Gabbard disagreed with President Donald Trump on intelligence related to Iran's nuclear weapons program, and after she announced her office was taking over the presidential daily brief from the CIA. Gabbard has created a new group comprised of intelligence professionals known as the Directors Intelligence Group, or DIG, to basically check the work of America's elephantine intelligence professionals. Now, according to Just the News, they're reporting that, quote, among the top priorities for the panel will be the Russia collusion hoax, the Hunter Biden laptop, and election vulnerabilities in 2020 and 2022. The Biden administration is labeling political opponents as terrorists and a host of others. So we just can't imagine why Tulsi Gabbard might be on everyone's crap list within the administrative steady state this year. And joining us now is our in-house geopolitical analyst and senior national security editor at the National Interest, Brandon J. Weichert, who wrote that article asking if Tulsi is on her way out. Look, Brandon, within DC circles and geopolitical circles, people who focus on intelligence, this is not this question is being asked. There's lots of chatter about Tulsi not being in favor. Not only has she perhaps fallen out of favor with the president, but she had a target on her back from the intelligence community from day one who will take advantage perhaps of this slight rift between her and the president if one is present. Because of, look at the list, and I have confirmed that this task force, is in existence. It is confirmed, and more. I've confirmed even more of what they're looking into, and I can tell you what she has tasked some of the professionals at the ODNI to look into. The three-letter agencies certainly don't want that. Tell us what you're hearing.
That's exactly what I'm hearing. Again, I don't know the details beyond what was listed in that Just the News segment. The Russia collusion hoax and things like that are absolutely verboten to discuss in the professional intelligence community. So for her to be coming on as the head of the entire 17-agency intelligence community, ordering her people to start digging into those stories alone, this is controversial. And you're right, any kind of rift or perceived rift between President Trump, who is really her only lifeline in that role because she's so hated by the intelligence bureaucracy and by many people on the Hill, many of whom she served alongside as a congresswoman, she is really kind of on her own on an island. She needs the president to have total backing of her moves. And ever since the Iran war, there is daylight between the two of them that the intelligence community absolutely will exploit because they want to get rid of her. And one thing in the report, Philip Wegman talked about this in his report on the matter last week at the Real Clear Politics website. Apparently, Tom Cotton has introduced legislation in the Senate Intelligence Committee that would essentially cap Tulsi Gabbard's staff to about 650 people, and it would send more than half of the functions of the ODNI, her office, it would return those functions to CIA. So this is all sort of, in my opinion, retaliation, Emerald, for her initial move to move the presidential daily brief out of CIA's domain and into her domain.
Can I just share with you? So I just confirmed with the print puller for the day, Steve Nelson of the New York Post, who asked a very important question that we're going to get to later in that cabinet meeting. If Tulsi did ever present in the room, he said no, she was not, and neither was RFK Jr., which is also notable. I haven't looked at his travel list or seen what he's doing today, but these are the two kind of Maha coalition appointments that are all of a sudden no longer present in the room.
Yeah. And we know, Emerald, that even during the night of the strike, when Trump had the Situation Room in the White House full of his advisors for the B-2 bombing strikes on Iran, initially we were told Tulsi wasn't there. Of course, then a picture came out showing her that she was there, but she was not part of the group sitting at the table. She was sort of on the end of the table on her own, and her body language was very much not that of somebody who really wanted to be there. It was sort of a hostage video type situation where she was clearly there because she had to be, and she did not want to be there, and she didn't agree. So there is tension between Trump and Tulsi Gabbard. The Republicans in Congress are trying to basically gut her office. It's not a great office to begin with. It's a redundant office, but the fact of the matter is Republicans and Democrats never had a problem with the ODNI until Tulsi became the head of it, and she started investigating these real intelligence failures and conspiracies to commit crime, such as the Hunter Biden stuff. So I think this is very evident that she's on the outs. She's not the only one though either. The only MAGA type that's on the outs, and that's the real sad thing.
Notably, this effort against her, I noticed from the circles I talk with, really ramped up after her comments in that one iconic cabinet meeting in which she stated in front of those pool cameras where all these networks, okay, MSNBC, probably CNN, I didn't have my feed going at the time, but where all of these networks play that cabinet meeting, and the director of national intelligence tells the world she has been briefed and seen that there is evidence of vulnerabilities in the voting machines that they can be hacked. Yeah. It really ramped up after that. So with saying that, and knowing now that she has this task force that in part between the politicization of all these other investigations they're supposed to be looking into and some of the Biden, era wrongs, is looking into 2020 and 2022 potential election fraud. It even goes beyond that. And that's all I can say. But real keen scrutiny on that. How important is it for Donald Trump to step up and protect her?
I think the fact that there's any question at all that he doesn't have her back is really wrong here. He should have had her back from the beginning. She's the only one really that can protect him from the deep state. A similar role was played by Mike Flynn for like a hot minute in the first term. And then, of course, Trump was duped into firing Flynn by the deep state. And we know from that moment on, the deep state was able to basically get their hooks into Trump and, attack him relentlessly. Now it looks like they're not going to necessarily in the deep state try to do the attacks directly like they did in the first term. They're going to try to get Tulsi out. They'll try to get my buddy Bridge Colby out at the Pentagon. They'll try to get maybe RFK out, and then they're going to basically co-opt Trump and push him into doing what they want. And we're already seeing this with the Epstein files. Trump is clearly going along with this, and he doesn't care about the truth anymore. So if Tulsi goes, and I suspect she is on the outs, I think she will go, whether it's now or 6 months from now, I think she's going to be out. The fact of the matter is that Trump will be co-opted by the same swamp that wants to destroy him and his MAGA movement.
She will be out if Trump doesn't get this message and adjust course. Let's talk about Albridge Colby a little bit. That's the other, seen as MAGA world figure that is under fire internally and from the deep state. And that's probably because last week, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, that's his official title, Colby put the kibosh on sending weapons to Ukraine based on the fact that America's arsenal, he says, is running dangerously low.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, after Netanyahu showed up in D.C., lo and behold, last night, what we heard at that dinner with Netanyahu and Trump said, and I don't have the soundbite right on hand at the moment, he said that he would be sending more weapons to Ukraine. He reiterated that in the cabinet meeting today, but he said it's for defense. But if Elbridge Colby put a kibosh on that last week, and now Trump is saying this is what he's going to do. It might not bode well for Mr. Colby.
Yeah, what that basically does is, just like with Tulsi, it signals to the neoconservative kind of globalist establishment element running DC that there's daylight between Trump and this very MAGA figure, Bridge Colby, and they're going to try to exploit that. He's already been under attack from day one by the neoconservative element because he wants to like a laser focus on standing up to China in the Indo-Pacific. He doesn't believe we can do all these other issues like fighting in the Middle East, fighting in Ukraine. He thinks we need to focus entirely on Indo-Pacific, and that gets him a lot of enemies, notably from the neoconservative element, which is obsessed with the Middle East and Ukraine. And so Elbridge has had from day one a target on his back. He finds himself isolated. He's in a strong position because of his rank, so he's able to still get things done. But ultimately, if POTUS is going to override him, that's going to weaken his position. It's also going to signal to Secretary of Defense Hegseth that Bridge is on the outs with the big boss, and Hegseth will act accordingly, which means that one of the few remaining America Firsters in the Pentagon, remember Dan Caldwell and those other guys were pushed out months ago. They were replaced by neocons. So one of the few remaining non-neocon leaders might be on the outs, because this is really going to hurt him with his ability to get things done if the president doesn't have his back. It's just like with Tulsi.
We actually do have that soundbite of Trump calling for more weapons. Let's take a listen to that.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big blow to Bridge. That's a big and by the way, sorry.
You said Hegseth will act accordingly. Is that because, and I don't quite understand this, okay, and the general audience would probably not know this, but there's a lot of the influential neocons and definitely the pro-Israel faction who are expressing a lot of dissatisfaction with Secretary Hegseth. And that surprises me because I don't completely understand why. And I asked that question, why? Because it seems to me he's pretty in line with the policy you all desire. So why is it? Why is perhaps Hegseth facing criticism and potential, maybe departure himself at some point?
Well, Hegseth is on his way out too. My sources have again said, and I know our friend Gabby Cuccia has also confirmed this from her sources, that everything we've heard is he's out by the fall. But ultimately, the reason that the neoconservative element is very displeased with him is simply because he's not one of them fully. He's a Fox News host. He didn't cut his teeth in the policy realm. He didn't come up in the ranks the way they did. He doesn't have the connections that they do with all the sort of neoconservative think tank elements. He's not part of the club. He wants to be part of the club. He agrees with them on the neoconservative worldview as it relates notably to the Middle East and to Russia, but ultimately he's not part of the team. They want somebody like Tom Cotton, who is actually one of them in terms of having come up in the same realm and understanding the policy dynamics and understanding who to hire and who not to hire. One of the biggest problems Hegseth has faced is he didn't hire all their people. He hired some America Firsters, and they didn't like that. And there's been this war behind the scenes in the Pentagon since Trump's inauguration to get those handful of America Firsters like Dan Caldwell, like even Bridge Colby, to get them out so that they can be replaced by a more fully neoconservative element. And they just don't like Pete the way that they like, say, Tom Cotton.
And you just brought it back full circle for me, because I was going to ask you before we wrapped up, what does it say about Senator Tom Cotton that he would actually introduce legislation to give more power to the CIA?
Well, they sort of do out themselves at the end of the day, don't they? I mean, we see this with the Epstein thing. Kash Patel made it clear in his Rogan interview that CIA has all the information. He's never changed that story. Here again, Tom Cotton is making it clear who he's really in support of, and that's CIA, with giving all that power back to CIA from the DNI because Gabbard is too much of a wild card. So here we have the resurgence of the CIA, and we know that John Ratcliffe, CIA director, in that clip that they were talking about arming Ukraine with President Trump, Ratcliffe is like giggling almost. He's so happy because it's happening. Ratcliffe, by the way, is also the guy, CIA director, who bypassed the entire intelligence community, Emerald, and handed over that Israeli intelligence saying that Iran was going to get a nuke in like a few days, which is what triggered the war in the first place back in June. Ultimately, that intelligence, I have confirmed, is not actual intelligence. It came from a predictive modeling program built by Palantir at the IAEA. It's called Mosaic. So it wasn't even actionable intel. It was a computer model. So that is who Tom Cotton is working for right now. He's serving CIA and establishment DC, and they're pushing Hegseth, they're pushing Tulsi, and they're probably going to, unfortunately, push Bridge out at some point.
Unless, because I don't want to leave it sounding like a completely hopeless situation.
Sure.
Trump realizes who has his best interest at heart and the best interest of the American people. And I do truly believe that Tulsi Gabbard does. I know what she's working on, some of the things she's working on behind the scenes. And it does, especially as we look to the midterms. It behooves President Donald Trump to protect her, let her do her job. And then I hope he understands that should the midterms not go the right way, no matter what he does, he can hand them everything they want on a silver platter. They're still gunning for him. There will still be a major impeachment effort. When he is out of office, there will still be criminal indictments, just like there were these past 4 years. So I hope he understands. And we just laid out, I think, I wanted to lay out for the audience why it's so important and what is going on behind the scenes, because the public needs to know and apply public pressure.
Their goal is to demoralize and then defeat. Demoralize, disrupt, and defeat MAGA. That's their goal. Yeah.
And don't feel that way. Don't feel that way. I understand why some people may feel that way today. It might be hard not to, but don't feel that way. There's still a lot of good things happening, and there's still some course correction that could occur. Thank you so much, Brandon Weichert. Thank you so much for helping me lay this out. I appreciate you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right, our own Kara Castronova is standing by at the White House with much more from that long and news-breaking cabinet meeting today, especially when it comes to the Epstein files. That's after this commercial break.
Swollen limbs, joint pain, inflammation, skin aging, and cognitive decline. These are just a few of the awful side effects that you can experience due to poor blood circulation. And popping ibuprofen is not a solution to the pain. It's only temporary relief, and it's only masking the true problem, which is inflammation. Researchers are saying to add this Antarctic super nutrient to your diet. I'm talking about omega-3 fatty acids, but not just any form of omegas. These particular omega-3 fatty acids are sourced from wild-caught krill. Has been shown to support healthy blood pressure, circulation, brain health, as well as reduce inflammation, swelling, and joint pain. For a limited time, you can grab Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil for up to 66% off plus free shipping. Just go to getkrill.com/Lindell right now to get your special offer. With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of his death?
Yeah, sure.
Could I just interrupt? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
Mr. President, on the tariffs.
Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi have destroyed their own credibility with their handling of the Epstein pedophile files, and have permanently, I would say, damaged the moral credibility of the Trump administration with the American public. The Epstein files have been disappeared by the Trump administration because Epstein was a honeypot operation for Israel with help from the CIA and that MI6. That means, okay, our intelligence services have blackmail on our politicians and elites. That's why we live in a banana republic. For more on that, let's go to the White House now with our White House correspondent, Kara Castronova, who's standing by. Boy, that cabinet meeting has caused a flurry of activity in MAGA social media. What more can you tell us about it, Kara?
Well, first, kudos to the journalist from the New York Post, Steve Nelson. I just spoke to him a short while ago for asking that question, because a lot of people would be afraid to ask such a question, especially at a cabinet meeting. But that is the obvious viral clip that came out of the whole thing. People want to know, obviously, what's going on with the Epstein files, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican is important. And the Gateway Pundit has reported extensively. And I love reading comments, because then I can really understand what the public is thinking. And nobody is happy, obviously. I'm reading the comments on X, reading the comments on these Gateway Pundit articles that were written, and people are just obviously frustrated. It's not old news that people don't like Pam Bondi and MAGA or the job that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were doing. But I think what really surprised people, and there's that article that, if you could pull that one up next, where it says, whoa, President Trump's reaction was a little bit interesting. I think what was most surprising was the president's reaction to that question by Steve from the New York Post. He sort of almost didn't want Pam to answer it. She did, though, and I think her answer was probably get more questions will be asked of because of her answer. It was an interesting answer, to say the least. She mentioned that a minute is cut off every single night at midnight, which I just don't understand, like a lot of people are trying to understand how a minute could be cut off from these jailhouse videos every night. So I think that this is just going to open the door for more questions, obviously, from Pam Bondi and the Trump administration. And again, MAGA is absolutely infuriated right now and not happy. And if you read comments on all of these articles, you have diehard Trump supporters who follow the Gateway Pundit who are just saying, this is completely unacceptable. Emerald.
Yeah, I too give kudos to Steve Nelson for asking the question, and he's a mainstream reporter, but he is one of those who has over the years asked some of the questions that are important to the Trump base and just good questions in general. So we want to give credit where credit's due. Look, getting back to that footage, we were told several years ago that the cameras have malfunctioned. We keep getting different stories, so that's why people are not accepting the answers. They want to know why we're asking these questions. The Trump supporters want to know these questions. That's who I'm seeing on social media in the large part saying we're not accepting these answers. Okay, so we've been told in the past that the malfunction happened with the footage. Now there's this footage. Now we're told it's missing a minute because of this. There's also other questions about the footage, and I know other people are breaking it down and dissecting it better than I could right now. And we'll try to get to that in the coming days. But there's also Pam Bondi qualified her answer to Fox News in the past about it sitting on her desk. We have that soundbite. Let's see if what she said today actually matches up with what she said then, and if her explanation holds water. Take a listen.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
And then she backtracked, as you know today, Emerald. Right. She backtracked on that and said it wasn't the list I was talking about. It was the file, and it just, like I said, it opens the door for more questions, more frustration. And it just doesn't look like there's transparency or honesty there, unfortunately, with this particular subject for the Trump administration. And, definitely that clip is controversial and it is contradictory to what she said today.
The problem is, too, I just want to say there is a lot of good things going on in the Trump administration. Okay. The border's getting under control. Maybe the deportations aren't where they really want them to be, but they're going. They're winning on the tariff messaging and the tariff war. This just feels like it's a misstep. And it's overshadowing a lot of the good that is coming out from the Trump administration. And a lot of it's because we were promised by these people that we would get answers, transparency. And with the contradictory statements they themselves have made, it's the president's most ardent supporters that are still asking questions. So we're going to continue to ask questions. Kara Castronova, thanks for being there and being there to ask questions for us. We'll keep diving into this, and I don't think whether they want it to be the last of it or not. This is not the last of talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Kara Castronova, thank you so much.
Thank you, Emerald. Have a great day.
All right. Well, we here at Lindell TV strive to ask the important questions, and we can do that because of the good folks at MyPillow.com. Not only are they putting out fantastic products made right here in the USA, they're supporting the absolute truth, and we thank them for that. And you can help support us by going to MyPillow.com, using your promo code TRUTH. We're going to tell you about some specials coming up in the coming days. Go to the MyPillow.com, use promo code TRUTH, or call the number you see at the bottom of your screen, 800-944-5396, 800-944-5396. I'll see you back here at 8 o'clock tonight. Thanks to the good folks at MyPillow. And that's the absolute truth. Vanessa Broussard is next with the Spin Room.